Perfect. Awesome. So I have Kelsey here, and we were just chatting about how we have the exact same Target mugs, which is, I love that. Target connections are always strong.
For sure.
Thank you so much for being here. It is early. You're located down in San Diego or in that
I
area?
actually live in Orange County. I'm in Costa
Okay.
Mesa.
Oh, you are. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I've lived in Huntington Beach for a while, and we just
Oh,
moved back
really?
up to LA. Yeah. So we were
Okay.
very close. Spent
Yeah.
most of our outings were in Costa Mesa because they had, everything like our little vegan restaurants. And I loved what was it called? Like the anti-mall. What's it
Okay.
called?
Yeah. That's like not far from where I'm at.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. I love it there. Are you from Orange County originally?
So I was born and raised in Torrance, California. That's
Oh,
where my parents are from. My dad worked as a firefighter in Torrance for 35 years, but we moved to Orange County when me and my twin sister were 9 months old. Um, and I've been here ever since.
oh wow. Oh, that's so
Yeah.
cool. Born and raised in California. I love that.
Yeah.
What do
I
you
definitely have thought about leaving just because I feel like there's so many other cool states out there, but I feel like California just like has a special place in my heart. And I feel like we're so spoiled here with the weather and I just love it. Like it's definitely home.
Yeah, I feel that way, and I wasn't even born here. Like I just have this connection to California, to LA specifically, and it like always sounds nice to maybe go spend a little bit of time in New York again and get that East Coast vibe. But then I'm like, I love it here. I just love it here. My son, he'll probably be like you. He'll be born and raised, for long term. So he'll be that little California boy. So you have a twin. What is that like? You
I
guys
do.
must have built in best friend.
We are. It's really funny because people always ask me, they're like, what's it like having a twin? And I'm always like, well, I don't know what it's like to not have a twin.
Yeah.
But growing up, I feel like we were really close. We still are really close. Like she's my best friend. We've never had any weird animosity. We've never been like not friends.
Yeah.
But up until we were going into college, we have been inseparable. We were best friends. Literally, just had that special bond. And then when she went off to school, she actually went to San Diego for college, and I stayed here. But up until that point, I feel like we did everything together. We played sports together. We weren't in classes together. I feel like in the first grade, they were like, you know what, these two need to not be together because they're just mischievous. We just kind of always were. Like we are very similar, but we're also like very opposite. But when we come together, I feel like we just have that balance. But we get along really well. Like our family dynamic growing up, like my parents are still together. We had a great support system, and just like kind of like that, like all American family is just how I grew up. But as far as me and my sister, we have a great relationship. Like we talk every single day. I always thought like we would go to school together, we would live together, we would like do all the life things together. But it's
Yeah.
also been nice because growing up, we had that identity. Everyone was like, oh, the twins, oh, the twins. Like I have been called my sister's name countless times. Like at this point, I just go along with it because I feel like it's rude if I don't. But when we went to college, and we went separate ways, she like created her own identity. Like she was just a killer scholar student. I wasn't. She was like the head of her sorority. She just did all those things. And then I stayed back here and I went to community college and I kind of had that experience. But she was able to make a bunch of new friends and like do her own thing and like create her own identity. And I was able to do the same here. So it was nice to kind of have that because growing up, we really didn't. We were connected at the hip. We were always known as like the twins. Like we weren't really like our own identities until when we graduated. And that was just like kind of a nice taste that I was able to have. And then she moved back after she graduated during the whole COVID thing. Back in 2020. So we get to see each other a lot more now. She lives in Mission Viejo. That's where my parents are. That's where I was raised. Once we moved there, when we were 9 months old, I lived there up until last year. And then I moved to Laguna Niguel. And then I just moved to Costa Mesa literally last month, like exactly 1 month ago. So that's just like a little bit about our dynamic. We get along really well. She is like hilarious. Like honestly, she's like the star of the show. Like, I think I'm pretty awesome, but I think that she is like just a complete character and everybody loves her. But I feel like I've been lucky with having a twin because you have a best friend. Like we would go to summer camps together. Like I never had to be afraid of like being alone or like not knowing people because she would always be there with me. And I know she would say the exact same thing. We just get along really, really well.
That is so nice. I
Yeah,
love that. You didn't have to kind of go to like school or like you were saying summer camp and wonder like, am I going to make any friends? Is anyone going to talk to me? Like you always had
exactly.
that. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad that you guys also had an opportunity to kind of create your own identities. I think that's really important, as we get older for everyone, for all of us, because we get put into like these little boxes as children and adolescents. And sometimes, we just kind of live out someone else's story and we're like, oh wait, maybe that's not really me, maybe I'm not like that, maybe I need to try this on or try that on and see,
Totally.
who I really want to be. And that's awesome that you guys were able to do that. What were some of the things that you guys used to love to do as a kid? I like this question and I always ask people this because I think as we get older we forget, and when you can bring a little bit of that back into your regular life, it just brings so much joy. Like I used to love to roller skate and read books and even like little arts and crafts things. And I've started to kind of incorporate like adult coloring books and things like that, when I'm on a meeting, like on a call or something. So what is something that you used to love to do as a kid that you could do now, or maybe you still do?
That's a really good question. I kind of have to think about that. I've always been very active, like in sports, like from a young age. And I feel like that's kind of what got me started with my fitness journey in my like later years. But we were like the neighbors that were always in the front yard, like playing handball on the garage and like playing volleyball on the street. And we would like play softball. We would draw on the concrete with chalk. Like we were like outdoors kids. Like we didn't have very much screen time. Obviously back then that wasn't like a huge thing, but we were very much like out like in the dirt getting messy. Like that's like the type of kids that we were, type of kid that I was. And I feel like that's something that I've been able to carry through my life. Like I ran a marathon when I was in the 8th grade. I was in the running club. Like I was just like a very active um kid growing up. I didn't have the best eating habits. That's something that if I could go back and change, I would, because I feel like it hindered me from having a lot of like success with sports and things like that. But I grew up playing softball. Like I played softball for over 10 years. I for sure could have got a scholarship if I stuck through it. I know I crushed my dad's heart when I decided to quit going into high school, but then I played volleyball. Me and my sister played volleyball for a few years. And then I was doing running. Like I've always been very active. Like that's just something that's a part of me. Like that's definitely something that I strongly identify with. And I think growing up, that had a major impact on me, was just being active and like being out in the outdoors. Like I love doing things outside. And just having that in my life now, I feel like is really important. I don't know what it's like to not be active. I don't know what it's like to not work out. I just feel like that's been ingrained in me since a child, which is something that I feel like I incorporate now as an adult. I'm trying to think of other things, but I feel like that's like the main thing that comes to mind that I really like can remember as a smaller child.
Yeah, that's great that you've been able to continue with that. It didn't kind of drop off and you realized you missed it and you had to pick it back up. I think that's really important and probably so beneficial, not only physically, but mentally as well, to be
Yeah.
able to have that, outlet. So that kind of is a great segue into like the next topic. You are killing it on Instagram with your like fitness journey and documenting that and sharing and just motivating. And I think that was one of the things that really drew me to you, was that you were like, you know what? Distractions, everything. I'm not going to pay any attention. I'm going to do me. I'm going to like create these goals and stick to this promise I made to myself. What does that look like for you right now? Like what was it that what was the catalyst where you were like, I'm going to get serious? And then what drives you to kind of continue to push yourself?
So after high school, like I said, I was playing volleyball and I was very like into sports, but after high school, I didn't have that anymore and I started working out. Like I literally remember I was 16 years old and I'm pretty sure that was like the first time I had ever been to the gym. And there was just something about working out that just like the gym like felt like home for me. And it's like kind of a weird thing to explain, especially if you're someone who doesn't like going to the gym. People are like, no, like that's not that's not enjoyable. But for me, it always has been. Like I've never really like been someone who was against fitness and exercise. I've always just had that inside of me. But after I left high school, I made a fitness Instagram, which was, oh my gosh, I think that was like 2016. So it's been a while. And I just started sharing. My Instagram used to be Misfit Kels, and it's funny because people used to make fun of me all the time, but I literally didn't care because I was doing it to document my journey. So up until about 16, 17, I was not a fit individual when I was in high school. Sorry, my cat's like walking in the I was not a fit individual, but I swear, like when I was going out of high school, I was like, I want to change something. Like I want to document my my health journey. I want to just do this for myself. And then if other people find this motivating, great. Like I had no intentions of it being where it's at today. And there's been a lot like of trial and error to get to where it's at. And I've done a lot of things in between, but I just started sharing on social media like 2 to 3 times a day. This was before Instagram was like aesthetically pleasing and videos and all of this. Like I was just posting like things I'd post on my stories now I was just sharing on my feed, and I was just posting workouts. I was like sharing my transformation. I was sharing like healthier alternatives. And like I really found my space, my spot in that healthy / fitness space that was available, like that was out there at the time. And it was way different than it is now. Like it's almost, I look at it now and I'm like, wow, like I'm happy that I was doing this back then compared to then I'm doing it now, because I felt like it's a lot more authentic and I was able to be myself and just share like about my life. And that opened up so many opportunities for me. Like I started considering myself like a micro influencer. Like my following started to grow just because I was sharing my healthy lifestyle and fitness and goals and like inspiration every single day, whether people were, you know, showing interest or not. I didn't care whether I had 50 followers or like 5,000 followers. I was still doing the same stuff. And that opened a lot of doors for me. I was working with fitness brands. I was making money on social media. I mean, not like big bucks, but I was doing that alongside like my serving job and going to school. Like it was just something on the side that was fun for me. And up until about 3 years ago, I like had shifted and I started with Arbonne, which is a health and wellness company. It's network marketing, which I was super against. I was like, I'm never doing something like that. Like that's not for me. But one of my friends that I had met on Instagram through like the health and wellness space was like, you should just check this out. Like you're already sharing products you love. Like you're already doing everything. Why don't you just try to make some extra money? And I was like, you know what? Fine. Like I was a broke college student. I was someone who honestly went to school because my parents wanted me to, not because they wanted to be there, which is why I went to community college. And there would be like, I was like so dedicated to fitness that I would rather be going to the gym than going to class. Like it's probably why I was in community college for so long, because I didn't take it seriously. Like I've always had a passion for helping people and making money in health and fitness. And I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'm going to find something. Like I've always been very entrepreneurial since I was like a little tiny kid. Like I always knew that I wasn't going to be average and I was going to be like something great. I just knew it was inside of me. No doubt. But I found my space like in the health and wellness industry. And I just felt like that was like a part of my identity. And then I wanted to be able to make an income while doing something that I love. So then Input Arbonne, that has been like the biggest blessing. I always get extremely emotional when I talk about it because it's truly changed my life. And not only has it impacted my health, but it's impacted like my wealth, and I've been able to share that with other people. So I feel like me getting into fitness, you know, almost 8 years ago was just like a stepping stone for me to be where I'm at today. And I love sharing health and wellness, but I also love sharing like inspiration, sharing my daily life. Like I like sharing all of those things. And I feel like Instagram for me has been my place to share and like use my voice out of all of the social medias that are out there. Because I want to be able to impact others and be like, you can do this too, whether that's through financial success or whether that's through fitness or health or relationships. I kind of like to have like that whole dynamic, not just like fitness, but be able to have all those other key components, because I think they all are extremely important. But I feel like health and wellness is like the best gift you can give yourself, because no one else is going to do it for you, right? Like it's your choice to be able to go to the gym. It's your choice to pick up and eat the food that you're eating. So for me, it's something that's literally ingrained in me, and it's a part of my routine, and it has been for the last 8+ years. And I just don't like, I couldn't see it being any other way. But that's just kind of how I got into fitness. Was there, honestly, I just woke up one day and I'm like, I don't care what people think of me. I'm just going to make a fitness page and like document my life. My Instagram looks way different now than it did then, but because, you know, Instagram is changing and all these things, but I still make it my priority to share healthy living, share what works best for you, because what might work best for me and my fitness goals and health goals might not be the same for someone else. But I want it to be a place where like everyone can feel safe, but still like gain knowledge and things like that. Like I've thought about becoming a nutritionist and, you know, like, or doing stuff in the health and wellness space, but I'm really content with what I'm doing with Arbonne because I've been able to leverage my time and I can help more people without having like, you know, my hands pulled in every other direction.
That's amazing. And you just turned 25 yesterday, right? Happy birthday,
Yeah,
by the way.
Thank
Wednesday.
you.
Yeah. It's really incredible to hear just the conviction you have when you speak about what you want to do, where you want to go, how you want it to look, and then to stick to it. Like at 25, I definitely did not have that drive. I was like, let me just do what I have to do so I can go out and party with my friends. Like that was it, you know, and stay out of trouble.
And it's funny that you say that because I have a lot of like mentors who are like in their 30s and they're like, because I started Arbonne when I was 21. And for me, like I always felt like just, you know, how people portray their lives on social media. Like I always had to have my ish together by like 25, you know, and that's not the case at all. But I've always known like from an early age what I wanted. And my father like instilled in me, he's like, whatever you want, like you're gonna have to go out and get it. Like don't wait for someone to come to you with it on a silver platter. Like he really ingrained like hard work and dedication in me because that's how he was. And it wasn't until after I started my Arbonne journey that he became more open-minded to me doing this, because in his mind, it was always, I want you to do something that's like, you know, it's like how most parents are, like, they want you to have security and they want you to, you know, like, but for me, I didn't care. I'm like, I don't even care about security, like, because I know that, well, I know my work ethic and I know like my abilities to go out there and get anything that I want. If I'm willing to work hard, it might take 5 years, might take 10, might take 20. I don't care the timeline, as long as I'm doing something that I'm passionate about and I love. You can make money. Like for businesses and things to work, you have to be able to find a pain point and to be able to just like, what's in it for someone else, right? And that's how it was for me. And I was like, okay, like either I can do nothing and just hope something awesome happens in my lifetime, or I can go out there and make it happen and do it for myself. And I just feel like I've always been very motivated and I've always been someone who like looks at life very positively. That's just like how I've been wired. Like it's really hard for me to be negative unless I'm like extremely upset, but I've just never been that way. And I feel like that just helps me in all aspects of life. It's just looking at life with the glass half full compared to glass half empty. And I feel like for me, it took me a while to realize like, okay, what's my purpose? Do I want to go to school? Do I want to work a 9 to 5? Like, how am I going to impact people's lives? Like, that's something that I think about every day when my feet hit the floor, is like, okay, what am I going to do today that's going to impact someone else? Like, that's something that's really important to me. And I feel like there's so many avenues, like in ways you can do that. But for me, I feel like that's through health and fitness and empowerment. And with Arbonne, it's really given me like a pedestal or a way to leverage like all the knowledge that I have and be able to pour into other people. Like that's just something that's so important to me. And my dad always told me, he's like, when you're really passionate about something, you can make a living off doing that. You just have to figure out a way to do it. And I feel like that was what was scary for me up until like halfway through college and, you know, navigating through all these avenues of ways I can take to navigate the real world after school. And all those options just didn't seem fitting for me. So I'm just really grateful that I've been able to have all these opportunities. And I truly believe it was because I made the decision to start social media and not only like leverage that, but really build my personal brand early on, because people can look at me on social media and be like, oh, her life's put together. She has this, she has that, but they don't see all the steps it took to get there. Like I'm just using Arbonne for example, because that's how a lot of people know me. They can see, oh, she had fast success in Arbonne, and I've only been doing Arbonne for 3 years. And truthfully, I have had fast success at Arbonne, but that's because there was years before where I was building my personal brand and building rapport and showing up online, that when I implemented this in my life, it was like a no-brainer because people already know, liked, and trusted me. Like I feel like it's important for people to find what works best for them. And that's just like what's worked best for me.
Yeah. And it's interesting what you're saying. There was, I don't know if you've ever read any of Marie Forleo's books, but I adore her. I think she's so smart. She's just very witty, and she's such an incredible businesswoman. But one of her quotes is clarity comes from action. And that always sticks with me. And what you're saying, I think is a perfect example of that. Like, what you want long-term, but what are the steps to get there? I'm not sure, but I have to do something. And every time you take action, you can then either continue or pivot. And by just doing something, whatever that happens to be, setting up your Instagram account, like, kind of posting about fitness, exploring the idea of Arbonne is getting you one step closer to wherever that is going to be. And I think that's like something that people don't, I think, realize, is that you don't have to figure it all out. You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to do something. You can't just sit there and think about it and try to figure it out or ask other people or, worry about what other people think. Just do it, do something, and then adjust and pivot. So I think that's amazing. And you've got that ethos too of whatever I'm doing, I want it to positively impact other people. And I think that's always a win-win. It's helping you and it's helping others, and you can't go wrong when you're bringing value to people, whether it's 3 people or 3,000 people. I think that's so special.
Exactly. I feel like people remember you based off of the value you brought, not how you looked, not how your Instagram feed looks. The people that I am inspired by and the people who influence me, it's not how their body looks, it's not how their workouts look, it's how they bring a value and how they show up as themselves. And I think that's important for me too, is people look at me on social, this is kind of crazy, but I've had people come up to me and be like, you're so nice, like I wasn't expecting that. It's like you have this persona of someone that you think it's how they are and they're actually not. And I'm always like, you just never know what you're going to get. And I think it's important to just authentically be yourself. And that's, I try my best to be that. Like, I'm quirky, I'm weird, I have, all these funny things about me, but I still try and show up as myself because it's so much more relatable than like an edited Instagram or like Instagram or social media. Like, just be yourself. And I think that's really important, and people will trust you. And then if they trust you, then they're more likely to buy into what you're doing, whether that's a product or a service or just your brand.
Yeah, absolutely. And we all have those weird quirks. None of us are this perfectly curated version of ourselves that we might portray. So it's nice to have that relatability where you can connect with someone and be like, oh my God, I'm like that too. Or that's hilarious. Like, this girl's crazy. Like, that's a good thing,
Yeah.
I am curious. So I like specifics. What does a day of like the best workout and like your let's say like your best day when it comes to your workout and your eating, what does that look like from like morning to night?
Like my daily routine?
Yeah.
Okay. So I usually get up early. So this is something that I just implemented a few months ago in August, which I think we're going to talk about that a little bit, but I started getting up before the sun, usually between 5 and 5:30, which for me, that was never a thing. I used to get up at like 8. I would be out the door to the gym by 10. I just had like a very slow morning because that's something that I cherished. I wanted to have time freedom and be able to do things on my own clock. But within the last few months, I usually get up between like 5 and 5:30. I don't read every single day, but I try to. I will go work out. I go through phases of workouts that I enjoy. Sometimes I love to go to the gym and just lift heavy, do traditional weight training. There's other times where I like to go to do boxing or like to go to HIIT classes. I go through phases. I don't have like a specific plan, but recently I've been into going to boxing, or I've been going to HIIT workouts just because I, like the feeling I get from those compared to just like traditional strength training. But for me, I usually am out the door to the gym between like 7 and 8. I'll come back and eat, and then I will start working. So since I just started working in the office literally less than a month ago, I'm usually there by 9:45. But when I was just doing Arbonne full time, I would do Arbonne for a few hours here. I do some stuff around my house, and then I would eat. My mornings usually look like having an Arbonne protein shake, or my roommate makes like the best overnight oats. So she makes those and I'll have those, greens. And then I'll usually have lunch, and it's some type of protein with salad or greens and vegetables or a complex carb. And then for dinner, it honestly usually just depends. Like I said, my roommate is like an incredible cook, and she will make, like last night we had we had barbecue chicken, and then she made like bacon wrapped asparagus and like these potatoes in the oven. It was amazing with this broccoli kale salad. Or she'll make like gluten-free and dairy-free enchiladas. Like I love food. I'm like a huge foodie. Like I'm not someone who like doesn't enjoy food. Like I love food. Like I look forward to food every single day. I feel like my favorite food to eat is like Mexican food or like Mediterranean food. Like those are my top two that I love to have. I'm not really like a huge Italian pasta person, but Mexican and Mediterranean, I would say are my top two favorite foods to have. But during the week, I try and eat pretty clean. And then on the weekends, I'll, my boyfriend go out to eat. I'll indulge a little bit there. I love dessert. Sweets is like my kryptonite. That's really hard for me not to have. Like after every meal, I feel like I need some things to eat. But that would kind of be like for me. I usually eat like 3 to 4 meals a day, have some snacks in between, try to drink a whole lot of water. Like that is so important. I feel like that's something that people don't pay attention to enough, but I feel like it can make the biggest impact on not only your health, but your well-being. And then in the evening before I go to bed, I usually have like some type of tea, and that's pretty much it.
Do you drink coffee?
I don't. I actually stopped drinking coffee when I first started Arbonne, because our healthy living program has you cut out coffee for 30 days because of how acidic it is. And I used to drink coffee every day. And then during that, I was like, I cannot give up coffee. And then I did for about 1.5 years. I didn't have coffee at all. And then last year, I started implementing it again, but I struggle with like severe gut issues. And I felt like that was really causing me a lot of problems because of how acidic it was. And I just would crash like by 10, 12 o'clock, then I'd be another one. So then I started drinking our fizz, which I have that every morning now with my tea, and I just feel so much better. So when people were like, oh, how do you stay away from certain things? Like, because I know how bad I feel once I have those things, it like really triggers me and like makes me not want to have them.
Yeah.
That's like a huge thing with coffee. And then I'm very sensitive to gluten and dairy. I'll have them sometimes, but they make me miserable. And like before I eat them, even if I want to, I like replay that in my head to be like, hey, do you want to enjoy this for 10 minutes while you eat it? Or do you want to be miserable for the next 24 hours? And that's kind of like how I base my judgment off what I'm consuming. Am I perfect? No, I still have slip ups, but I think the last time I had a cup of coffee was probably in the beginning of this year. So it's been a while.
That's great. Yeah. And I think it's so helpful too. I think people don't realize how much that plays into your mood too, like the caffeine and a little bit of anxiety if you're sensitive to caffeine. And just, as humans, we were never supposed to need caffeine to wake up and go about our day. So I think if you can reprogram kind of your dependence on that, you actually have more energy. I've gone through phases where I've cut it out, and I still do my 1 cup in the morning with like coconut butter and things to help metabolize the caffeine. But I think in the near future, I'm going to cut it out again because I like teas and I like to do my herbal teas. And I actually feel more energetic when I don't have caffeine, which is interesting. So I think I might be moving in that direction again soon.
I'm not going to lie. I am like I'm addicted to caffeine, like for sure. It's not that I don't drink coffee because it has caffeine, because I am not gonna lie, I ingest a lot of caffeine every day, which I probably shouldn't. It was more for like the acidicness of it and the way that it makes me feel. But up until now, I've been someone who hasn't really struggled with anxiety. Like, I know that's a huge thing for a lot of people. And personally, I've never felt that. I have had moments where, like, if it's like caffeine based or like stimulant based, then I'll feel it. But for the most part, so that's something I haven't had to struggle with, which is shocking because it runs deep in my family, same with depression. But I do believe that my healthy lifestyle has made a huge impact. And people don't want to hear that. People who have bad diets, who might be overweight, I have some underlying mental health, I hate saying issues, but there's so many things that play into that. And people don't realize that. Like, if I didn't work out and I didn't take care of my body and I didn't eat nutrient dense whole foods, I probably would experience some of that, because your serotonin's in your gut, and that plays a lot of part on how you feel, like physically and emotionally. Because when my gut is off track, I definitely can feel those things, not to the extent where it's like a huge issue, but I feel like that plays a huge part, like in your mental health and your physical health. And people don't realize like how big of a key component it is. And I feel like that's something that I don't want to say like blessed, but it's something that I've like come to realization with is that like there's so many key components to healthy living. It's not so much about how you look, like your body wise. Like, I know a lot of people work out and eat healthy because they want to have a specific body type, but for me, it's because I genuinely want to feel good, and I want to be able to get up every day and not have to drink tons of energy drinks, or, you know, like take stimulants or whatever the case is, like to get myself throughout the day. It's because I genuinely want to feel good. And obviously, like, for me, when I feel good, I look good, right? Because you can look great but feel terrible, and I would way rather feel good and not like be like the slim whatever 6-pack ab person. It feels way better to be on that side of the spectrum than it does to be like depriving yourself, and maybe you look great but you don't feel great, for me, and then you don't have any energy. That's not something for me that I'm willing to like risk or put on the line.
I think that's so important. And it's just, that's such good advice. And it's so important for people to understand the connection between what you put in your body and how you feel. And you're absolutely right. I'm sure your lifestyle has contributed to some of those genetic predispositions not coming through as strongly. And I think that's really great that you've been able to kind of recognize the way that you can impact your own well-being based on what you eat or what you don't eat, and the way you treat your body. That's really important.
And even the chemicals and stuff you put on your skin and in your hair, all of that, people don't realize, like, the stuff that you put on your skin and your hair and on your face, it literally seeps into your bloodstream in less than 60 seconds. And people are like, oh, how? Like, you're not ingesting it. Your skin is literally your biggest organ. And for me, that's like why I got into the non-toxic holistic health route almost 3 years ago, was because my mom had cancer right when I went into college. She had stage 3 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I started to realize, like, okay, wow, she was healthy. She had no like underlying health issues. But over time, you start to think, okay, like, not only is what I'm eating affecting me, but the stuff I'm putting on my skin. Like, us women put on at least 40 products a day before we walk out the door, right? And those things have such a either positive or negative impact on our well-being, especially over time. Like, if you're living 75, 80 years and the majority of that you've spent putting on toxic products, of course you're going to have issues.
Every day. What do you use? What's your favorite non-toxic products these days?
I literally, if I'm being honest, I pretty much only use Arbonne. We have like over 500, and I'm not trying to like plug Arbonne. It's generally just because I do use it.
What you use.
Yeah, we have over 500 products: hair, skin, bath and body, nutrition. We literally have everything people are already using, just cleaner and safer, not only for us, but for the environment. So, and that for me, before I started that holistic health journey, I had no clue about any of these things. Like, zero. I didn't like they're like, candles are bad and these are bad, and I'm like, yeah, of course it is. They're just trying to sell us on something new until I really actually learned like, wow, every single day I'm putting all these products on my body. Either I'm ingesting them or they're going on my body or they're going in my hair or it's going on my face. Like, where can I turn my dollars to be able to use products that aren't as harmful for my health? And it was a slow, steady, gradual change. It wasn't like I did not have the funds to just like go wipe out everything and start fresh, but I started to do it over time. And then once I healed my gut and my skin was glowing, I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to put the junk on my, on my face anymore. Same thing with my hair and same thing with, with my body, because like I said, I struggle with a lot of gut issues. And once I realized like, okay, I'm being mindful of what I'm ingesting, why don't I start being mindful of what I'm putting on my skin and things like that? And I feel like it's been impactful for me. And I'm not saying that everyone needs to go out and do that, but I think it's important to get educated on those things because it's something that could possibly affect you in the long run if you
definitely
don't understand the consequences of using those things.
Yeah, it's what you eat, it's what you put on your skin. Also cleaning products, we're just breathing that in and absorbing that through our skin. I want to talk a little bit about your gut issues. I know so many women struggle with gut issues and can, have a really hard time sometimes figuring out the culprit and making changes. What have you found, has been maybe some of the reasoning for your gut issues? What symptoms were you experiencing and how have you kind of resolved some of that?
It's been a lot of trial and error. And I want to say about 5 years ago, I started struggling. And I don't know if it was from the intense dieting or just overstraining on exercise, or if it's just because of the long list of food sensitivities I have. I don't know. I mean, and I have underlying IBS. I don't know what really caused it, but I still struggle here and there with flare-ups. Like my stomach will get huge, like distended. I will look like I'm pregnant. Like if I eat like a tiny bit of gluten or even like a little bit of dairy, like it instantly happens. And it's crazy because not only does it affect my body, but it really affects my brain and it really affects my energy and it affects how I feel. And I feel like alcohol played a huge role in that too, which is one of the main reasons I gave it up, was because I was just so miserable that I was like, I need to change something, because it was impacting like my daily life. It was impacting my relationship. It was impacting me literally like getting out of bed every morning, because I was just like my tank was literally empty. And I feel like food played like the foods I was eating played a huge role in it. And even if they're healthy, like there's healthy foods out there that still cause disruption to your gut. And it was almost more frustrating to figure out what it was, where I was like, you know what, I don't even care. Like it's really frustrating to have to cut out all these foods and do all these things. Like I'd rather just be miserable, because that just takes so much more time. And then I had got to the point where I was so miserable where I'm like, I literally can't do this anymore. I had gained like almost 15 pounds of inflammation. I like didn't even recognize myself in the mirror anymore, like because I was just so like physically and mentally drained from my gut issues. Like I was lacking in my business, and I just like truly felt like I couldn't get any lower because I just felt so terrible, and it was impacting all like aspects of my life. So that was like one of the main reasons I cut out alcohol, and I really like got clean, like really got clear and started cleaning out my diet. Like I really cut back on eating gluten and dairy, and those two things made a massive impact on just how my body looked and how I felt. And I think alcohol too. I'm not an alcoholic. I drink a couple, I mean, everyone's definition is different for when it comes to what an alcoholic is, but that was never me. Like my parents barely drank growing up. I've maybe seen them with a cup of alcohol in their hands 5 times, maximum 10 in my entire life. But there is addiction that runs in my family. And the main reason I cut out alcohol, which I know we were planning on talking about that.
No, this is a perfect segue.
I want to like segue into that, but
this is
I've
one
been
of the
wanting
things
to
that
give alcohol.
I was drawn to.
Yeah, so I was always like, I probably had my first sip of alcohol when I was like 17, and I've always been someone who I never craved alcohol. I was never like, oh my God, I need to go out on the weekends and like get drunk. That that's never really been me. But I feel like within the last 2 years, like I met my boyfriend and he's from New Zealand. He moved here when he was 11. He was like, alcohol like was something that was like in his daily lives. Like he didn't drink every single day, but like Friday and Saturday we would go out and we would be drinking, and just like that led to other things. And then I'd be hungover, and then I just being my own boss and being in charge of my schedule when I'm hungover or when I'm feeling that way, I just had no energy to do anything else. And I felt like my quality of life wasn't what I wanted it to be. And I just, that didn't feel like it belonged as something that was a part of my identity. Like I had like my Arvon friends who, you know, have a certain way of life that they live. And then I have like my friends who are my age, who are 22 to 26 and, you know, living over here, and Newport Beach is right here. And, you know, we have all the bars. It's just like such easy access. And I felt like when I first started dating my boyfriend, I'm like, whatever he wanted to do, I wanted to tag along with him. And that looked like going out and drinking like all day Saturday and Fridays. And I'm someone who, because I think I'm so focused on fitness, like if I'm gonna drink, I'm gonna drink to get drunk. Like I'm not wasting calories on,
Right.
that's just how I was. And I was like,
make it efficient.
I was a huge shot taker. Like
Yeah.
if you brought a bottle of tequila and lemonade, like that was my thing. And I wasn't even someone who could drink a lot. Like I would be 3 shots in and I'd be fine. But I just felt like alcohol really took me away from like who I felt I was supposed to be. And then I would be out at the bars on the weekend, and then I would show up on Instagram on Monday and be like, buy my products from me, buy this healthy life. It just didn't feel like it was a part of my identity. Like if I'm out here posting health and fitness, and I just want to like make a disclaimer, is I think it's really important to have a healthy, balanced lifestyle, but I'm a perfectionist, and I feel like I also don't know balance. I'm like really far one way or really far the other. And before I met my boyfriend, I would maybe go out one time on the weekend. It wouldn't be every weekend, but then we would go out and it would be like alcohol was involved in everything. And then I just felt like there was just something inside of me where I'm like, I just don't want to do this anymore. Like, I just don't want this. This is not me. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired of drinking alcohol. Like, I don't even like it. And I just knew it was going to be hard because my boyfriend likes to drink. And if I'm being honest, it's completely shocked me, like how much he's cut back. Like we don't go out anymore. Like he barely ever drinks. And he used to be someone.
Wow.
Like,
you had that positive influence
honestly,
on him.
The other day we went to celebrate my dinner or my birthday, and like he'd be someone who'd have like a beer or whatever, and like I was like the person who would order like a margarita, and he just has like completely cut back on drinking. And that was something for me, like a few months into our relationship, and he like knows this now, but at the time I'm like, do I really want to be with someone like this? Like I just don't like alcohol. I'm fine without it, right? And it's more of like a social thing. And I got sick in July. I stopped. The last time I had alcohol was July 10th. And it's been something that I've been wanting to do. I've always been very sober curious, but I'm just like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like, it's going to be hard for me because that was my routine, was going out on the weekends, and alcohol was included in that. And that's just something that was a part of my life.
Yeah.
And then I got sick. I didn't have COVID, but I came down with like a really bad cold. And there was like a few of us, and I didn't drink for like 2 weeks because of that. And that just like started the whole thing. And I felt great. And I'm like, you know what? I'm at this stage right now in my life. Cause this was like July, August, I feel like was when I really made like this mental shift, because not only was I tired of drinking and like living that lifestyle, I was really just miserable with my gut health, and my business was going backwards because I wasn't putting a lot of effort into it, because I was out partying and doing things I shouldn't have been doing. And it made a really, really, really negative impact, not only on how I viewed myself, but my personal business and my income. Like I started making 6 figures my second year in business. Like, wow. And for me, that was more money than I've ever had in my entire life. I went from making $1,000 a month as a server to 6 figures plus my second year. And I feel like I was just blowing my money on going out and partying and like trying to impress people that I really didn't care about.
Mm-hmm.
So in July, I stopped drinking and I was feeling amazing, but I was still struggling with some gut issues. And I had this conversation with my boyfriend, and I'm like, something needs to change. Like, I was crying every day. I had really felt like I had lost my identity, and I was really struggling with all of these limiting beliefs, and like I just didn't feel like myself. And I felt like, okay, I literally am as low as I can get. Honestly, no one really knew except for my boyfriend, because I honestly didn't feel like telling anyone. But I made a promise to myself, and I was like, if things are going to change, I'm going to have to do this myself. And there were a few things for me where I'm like, these are decisions I'm going to make. And until I'm out of this weird funk, I can maybe go back to those. That one of those was alcohol. And my goal was to give up alcohol for a month. It was never, I'm trying to give up alcohol forever. I'm not trying to be sober forever. Like, that was never in my plan. It was more of, I just want to get back to a place where I'm happy and I'm not stressed and I'm not hating the way that I'm feeling and the way that I'm looking and the way my business is going. And like, my relationship has always been great. I've never had like any rocky issues. That's never been the problem, but I just was not happy with myself. And I felt like that was causing me a lot of issues. And I had to realize that like life isn't meant to be easy, but I feel like we go through things that make us stronger. Like, at the end of our lives, everyone's going to look back and there's going to be periods of time where like things were harder, but then in 6 months to a year from that point, you'll realize like, okay, everything happens for a reason. And that was like to make me stronger. I think that's a part of my story, is because people look at me all the time and they're like, oh, she has this linear, perfect, road to success, or her life's always been perfect, or whatever the case is. And like, that's not true. And I feel like I'm trying to be better at being vulnerable and letting people know like I'm not perfect either. And I think the biggest thing for me is like, I've always been very prideful about my work ethic. And I feel like I had to let that slip probably for about like 6 months to not a year, 6 months to 8 months. And it really caught up to me. And like, I remember there was 1 month where was like scraping by to pay my bills. And I'm like, this is not like me. Like, I need to change something. I'm giving up alcohol. I'm cutting out distractions. I'm writing down a list of a few things that are important to me that are daily non-negotiables, and I'm going to do them. And I read the book, The Slight Edge. I don't know if you've ever read that, but like that I felt like in that time in my life, like God placed that book in my life and was like, you need to read this. And it has literally changed like the trajectory of this last quarter of this year, where I'm like, wow, I was focusing on just a 30-day change, and then I was focusing on a 60-day change, and I was focusing on a 90-day change. And I feel like when you're aligned in your life with, your health and business and relationships and action, like action is the biggest thing, because right, you can say you want all these things, but until you actually take action to do them, they're not going to change. And in the book, it says, if you just focus on improving 1% every single day, that's over 375. Wait, is there 365? Oh my gosh.
360.
No, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I wrote down like some of my non-negotiables, like what they were, and they weren't these like big crazy things. They were just like 30 minutes of exercise, reading a book, focusing on my business, like talking to 5 new people a day, like just like basic things that if you don't do them over time can impact you heavily, or if you do them over time, they can also impact you heavily, right? And that was something for me that really like changed not only my mentality, like it made me stronger mentally, because I'm like, you know what? No one else, like I always tell myself, like, no one's coming to save me. No one's coming to do it for you. Like, if you want something, you need to get up and do it. I feel like people are so excuse based. And that was something for me, is like, I always made excuses. And if you make excuses for yourself, I don't feel bad for you, because it's your decision. Either you're going to get up today and you're going to like take the day on, or you're going to make excuses and you're just going to be in the same exact place tomorrow. And I had done that for 6 to 8 months, where I'm like, I'm tired of making excuses. I don't want to look back. And a few years and wish I did things differently, like I'm going to change today. And it's like that deciding factor and taking action. Like same thing with the alcohol is like, I'm like a perfectionist. Like if I make a decision to do something, nothing can like take that down, but you have to be so, for me, like ingrained in why I'm doing it. Because if it's just like, oh, I'm giving up alcohol because I want to get healthy, it's like, okay, well, alcohol is presented to me and I'm not really ingrained in that, I'm going to fall back into bad habits. But for me, it was like, I want to give up alcohol because I want to get healthy, to fix my gut so I can have more energy to do like daily things. So it's like really getting more deep into why you're doing something. Like same thing with my business. I want to reach out to 5 to 10 people a day. Great. Awesome. Life happens. You don't do that. But if you're like, I want to reach out to 5, 10 people a day because I want to build my business, because I want time freedom to quit my job, or whatever the case is, like you're more willing to do those things every day because there's like a deeper reasoning behind why you're doing them. And for me, like no one else needed to know my goals. Like I just needed to know them. And I feel like the times when I don't want to do something is when I need to do it most. And I just want to encourage people that your dreams really like aren't that far away from you as long as you have goals and you're willing to take action. But the majority of people won't. Like the majority of people, my book's over there, would read The Slight Edge, but they wouldn't take the action, like the book tells you to do. Make the change. Like that's the same thing as like people will write down their goals. Like 2022 is coming up, people probably have health and fitness goals, they'll write down business goals, whatever the case is. But if you have your goals but you don't have a plan and you don't use action, like you're never going to get there. So for me that was huge. It was like, okay, you don't need to write down this long list of 100 things. Write down 5 things that you want to change today or whenever, and like dedicate to yourself. Like that was the biggest thing for me. Is I'm like, I don't care what anyone else thinks. Like I'm doing this for myself, and the only person who needs the approval to do these things is me. Like I don't need praise from other people for giving up alcohol or for doing those things, because that's something that I wanted to do for myself, because I just genuinely wanted a better quality of life. I feel like I am more excited about life. I feel like my relationships are better. My business is thriving. And I just started working with my boyfriend, and people might look at me and be like, oh, well, she had to get another job because our bond's doing terrible. That's not the case at all. Like I took on this position because I can, not because I have to. If it wasn't for him, there's no way I'd be doing it, because I'm really passionate about the reason why I do what I do, is because my main goal when I started 3 years ago was I wanted financial freedom and I wanted time freedom, because those were 2 things that people couldn't take away from me. But that's what a lot of people in this day-to-day life are lacking. So that was something that was really important to me. And just, I don't have some really big crazy story of why I gave up alcohol. It was just like, I just felt like it wasn't me. And I felt like being a fake and phony individual by living this fake life out in the real world and then coming online and acting like this perfect human being. And it just wasn't me. And I just, and if you're listening to this and you do struggle with addiction and you do struggle with giving up alcohol, I really would just encourage you to seek help or find someone who you trust and like share your struggles with them, because a lot of people are battling things internally that they're embarrassed to share with other people. But that can be like your biggest saving grace, is just telling someone like, hey, I need you to keep me accountable, whether that's with business or fitness or giving up, let's just say, alcohol, because you're more likely to do something if you tell someone. Obviously, you don't need to go on social media and be like, I'm an alcoholic, I'm giving up alcohol. Right. But if you're like, hey, I think SMART goals are important, because they're like small, like attainable goals that you can tackle every single day, that aren't like this huge, big ordeal. Like I'm going to give up alcohol for 100 days. Okay, that's cool. But like, can we focus on giving it up for 21st? Right. It's like focusing on the small goals first. And then over time, you're going to be like, wow, that 1% change that I made every single day has impacted me so much. That's like what I look back at myself 4 months ago, I look back at myself now, and like daily, there really wasn't that much change. But then I look back over those 4 months and I'm like, wow, I don't even recognize who I was then. And all it was one decision that I made to just give up that life and just do stuff for me. And a lot of my friends in the beginning, they didn't understand. Like my twin sister still jokes. She's like, so you're never going to drink again? Because I feel like we were always like the life of the party. But
yeah,
like my girlfriend got me this for my birthday. It's tequila
oh my
alternative
gosh,
ritual.
oh
Because
nice.
tequila was like my main drink. Like that was like my thing. And I love margaritas,
Yeah.
but it's 0 proof and there's no alcohol in it, but it literally tastes like it. And it's nice that people, if you're doing something like this, like giving up alcohol, like tell people. Like
Yeah.
if they're inviting you to dinner, don't fall for the peer pressure. Just be honest with them and say, hey, like I'm giving up alcohol for X, Y, and Z. I would really appreciate it if you understood those boundaries. You know, you don't need to be excluded from the group. I definitely have stepped away from going out and being around certain groups of people because I feel like I'd be extremely tempted and I'd fall back into that pattern, which I don't want to do. But if you have friends and you're usually your normal going out friends, like I want to just encourage you to do other things, go on hikes, go do things that aren't centered around drinking alcohol, or maybe you have, you know, some other type of kryptonite that you're trying to cut back on. Is just figuring out why you're trying to give yourself like a timeline. And I always say, like, just start with even just 2 weeks, even a week. If you're someone who drinks alcohol every single day, has a glass of wine every single night, focus on like a week. Okay, you smashed a week, do 2 weeks, like focus on those goals. Same thing with fitness, same thing with anything. That's what's going to create habits. And usually when you pick up good habits, it's really hard to put them down. Same thing with bad habits. When you pick up bad habits, it's really hard to switch over to the other side. So just cutting out the distractions too, and coming up with a game plan, and just find someone that you can confide in and be like, hey, these are my goals. I want you to keep me accountable. Nothing but love, but I want my life to change, or I want whatever the thing is like to change. And I promise when you start focusing on those key areas of your life, health and fitness, same thing, finances, relationships, cutting out that distractions like alcohol, your life will change. You might not notice it right away, but you look back in 6 months and be like, wow, maybe your body physically changed. Maybe you mentally feel better. Maybe you have more energy. Maybe your business is doing better, or you're doing better at work. I don't know what that looks like for you, but it's definitely possible. But I think it's important. Like I always really say, like, it's really important just to start with a small goal. And then when you feel like you've tackled that small goal, you can add more things on, because if you start with the big one, and you don't do that, you're not going to do the small stuff because you're already going to feel defeated.
Yeah, it needs to be attainable, and it gives you that self-confidence to keep going. This was so amazing. You are such an inspiration. I love how self-aware you are and just committed to your own personal well-being and your own personal goals. And it's for you and it's about you. And, you know, you're there to inspire and encourage, but at the end of the day, you're going to do what's good for you and not what, you know, other people, you know, maybe put pressure on you to do or think is best, or, you know, they have their own issues with. So thank you so much for sharing and being open. And I loved this. This was great.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. Seriously, I'm honored, and I hope that you got everything you wanted out of this.
Yeah.
Because
where can everyone find you if they want to follow along on your journey? Where can they find you?
I'm mostly on Instagram. My Instagram is just my first name, Kelsey_Garbe. That's kind of where I'm at. I'm trying to get better with TikTok and all those other things, but that's like my main platform would be on Instagram. If you want to come say hi, I would love that. I usually respond to all my messages. That's something that's important to me, is creating relationships with the people that follow me. So you can find me on Instagram.
Nice. And I'll put that in the show notes too. So anyone who's listening, you can go down and click on Kelsey's Instagram as well. Amazing.